Hello, 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 everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome to Courageous Custody, your weekly dose of empowerment and practical guidance. I'm Renee Rodriguez, the creator of the Custody Blueprint.
And I am Audra Tarfa, an IFS trained practitioner and founder of the Global Trauma Institute. And Renee and I are here because we understand that there's challenges out there for protective parents when they face the courtroom. And so our mission is to equip you with strategic thinking and emotional support, the two together, because you're going to need them both to navigate this difficult journey with strength and resilience.
So every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're going to go live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, bringing you inspiration and insight from stories about courageous parents who have walked in your shoes and emerged victorious in big ways and small, and practical strategies from us to help you advocate for your children and manage your trauma as you go through your custody case. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Okay.
A reminder that we are not giving legal advice or therapy.
Yeah, and if this content does become triggering in any way, we want you to take care of yourself. So step away and come back and join us in the comments.
So today's topic is how to use parenting communication platforms in your custody case. With this, we're really talking about those parenting portals that the court might actually order you guys to use, or otherwise what they might do is they might actually have you consider it. And so a parenting coordinator or some such might have you go ahead and use it. So, the biggest one that I suspect most people are using, but I haven't looked at the stats on this, is our Family Wizard, or OFW. And look, when we're talking about, I'm going to talk about just a few of the biggest ones, because a lot of people don't know what we're talking about. And so just to know that this solution is there is great. And most of them have the same stuff, and we'll kind of talk about that. So with OFW, look, what these things are is it's the best one to have an all-in-one, like one-stop shopping co-parenting. And basically the number one thing they all have is that you are able to communicate back and forth with your co-parent instead of using email or text messaging, so that you basically have locked in the communications. So somebody can't say they never got something. Somebody can't say they sent something when they really didn't. Somebody can't say, I looked at that, but not until it was too late, because there's a timestamp that says, there's a date and timestamp that says when they do. And then almost all of them also have a calendar feature, so that you can use that to have, what your kiddos are doing and, where they're supposed to be. You can even have the parenting schedule on there, and basically everywhere where the kids are supposed to be at any given time are on these calendars. And once again, once they're put in, just like the, messages, once they're sent, it's locked in there. It shows who put it in there and when they did. So you can't claim, no, I told them all about it, when it's kind of like, you didn't, you put it in after the fact. And that's very clear because there's metadata, as we've been talking about so much lately. And in this case, the metadata is straight up, kind of put out there. The date and timestamps are there. So then when we look at OFW, one of the things it's most famous for, that I think a lot of the other ones are beginning to catch up on, is that they've always had, or almost always had, a tone meter. It's no longer an extra cost now. It's just a part of it, because really they're leading into AI, and it helps the users craft less hostile messages. And it's supposed to encourage more respectful communication. I have found that it goes on overdrive a little bit.
It does.
I think it does. But even when it does sort of criticize things where it's like, I'm not trying anything here, I think it's important to take a look at what they're trying to point out and why they flagged it, and just see if there's a different, even briefer way to say something. But it does help with the organization. It has the calendar. There's color coding. There can be notifications. OFW probably has the best at this time expense tracking. So, and you can actually even pay through OFW. And so if you're not getting your ex to pay you what they're supposed to, OFW is very clearly pointing that out. What I love about OFW, which is actually my favorite at this time, is the info bank. Because there you can put things, look, the number one thing I think you guys should be using this for, besides gathering evidence just by being collaborative and then showing that they're not, is also showing that you are being informative. And what I love about Information Bank and OFW that we do ask you to use is putting in information so that you don't have to start an email that will start an argument. So, Tommy has gone up in size. He's now a size 5 shoe. Could be a message that is going to end with, yeah, it's about time you bought him new shoes. You've been neglecting his shoes and his toes are curled in his shoes, which of course isn't true. Instead, you can just quietly go into InfoBank and do something like change his shoe size, and it'll show the date you changed it. It'll show that you changed it as soon as he moved into a size 5 shoe or whatever, right? And that's just one tiny example. There's all the sizes. There's, who their teachers are. It's, who their coaches are and their contact information. So the whole, she doesn't tell me, the coach's name or contact information. Actually, it's there, and he gets a notification showing that something was added to the info bank. I can't force him to go and follow a notification, right? And so I'm big fan of not just, a lot of people get OFW and just do the messaging and maybe the calendar. OFW, I think you try to use everything. So there's, the accountability and transparency is there. Everything can be logged and deleted. There's read receipts that confirm when the other party has read a message, so that miscommunication isn't there. And, honestly, just being on a portal limits contact, which we actually want. There isn't all this texting back and forth. There aren't all these emails, because it very clearly shows how many emails, how many messages someone has been sending in that portal. And it doesn't look good, right? And I think it helps, nervous, protective parents who think they're supposed to communicate with everything. Now you're beginning to see that maybe you are sending too many emails, and the court will see that, right? How can you then learn how to be brief, factual, and friendly? And I will say most of these have printouts. They all claim to have, like, you can print things out and bring them into court. We do occasionally have clients who have successfully used these reports. For the most part, my own experience, which is, we see this a lot, they're not as readable as they want to be. Or I think the real problem is that even if they are readable, are they doing the stuff we've been talking about more recently? Are they actually relevant? Are you able to sort of highlight certain things? Are you able to really use it in a way that works? And so when it comes to the reports, I personally don't find them useful when we're running strategy on cases. I prefer to just get the emails, the messages, as is what these platforms usually call them, which is a little bit confusing because it sounds like text messages or quick little DMs, but messages is really their way of calling it an email. But these messages, these emails that we're using within these platforms are far more successful as evidence pieces, I think, as well as using the reports from expenses and also just taking a look at being able to show little things here and there. Like, I let them know that the shoe size went up. Here's a printout of when I put the new coach's name and contact information in. With all these things, is there a cost or isn't there? There is. And what I'm always going to argue is, like with OFW, it's $100 a year, and you can get extra perks that you don't need. But the question becomes, if you're paying your lawyer $100 for every 6 minutes or more, or if you're paying for this, that, or the other thing, $100 a year, which basically comes down to a little over $12 a month, unless I've got my math terribly wrong. I do, but it's about what, like $8 or $9 a month, right?
Yeah.
The peace of mind and the evidence gathering is definitely worth $8 or $9 a month, right? And so you do have to pay it all at once. You have to fork over $100, and I get that. But I think if you prepare for it, it's another thing that you're paying for. But if you're budgeting and you're looking at it, to me, these platforms are a necessary cost and a good one, I think, in terms of.
And it's being normalized in family court, right? It is something that they've kind of learned or come to expect to see. And so they're going to be more responsive to an OFW sort of thread than even an email back and forth, right?
Yes, they are.
They are. Family court likes their way. And I I try to tell our clients this and really sort of get them understanding in their nervous system. It doesn't mean that it's right or fair or any of those justice things. It is just, that is just the environment of family court. And they like to see these platforms being used for communication.
Well, you know who doesn't like to use these platforms for communication are abusers.
Who, Renee?
The abusers do not want to be held accountable. They don't like that, you can see when they've come on and not read emails or whatever.
Right.
And but I do want to say this. When I have found protective parents who are resistant to it, they're saying, I don't want, now he can see me. He can see when I'm on, he can see this, he can see that. And not always, but the vast majority of the time when I'm talking to these clients, I come to discover that they're jumping on every time they get a notification. And what I'm always telling clients is, first off, turn off the notifications. You'll see them anyway when you log in. It'll say notifications. You got this many messages, this many this many that. And as long as you are checking as often as either your court order or, you could be checking, which might be twice a week or so, unless it's more according to the court order, then yeah, they can see you coming on. But what I tend to find is that a lot of protective parents are just jumping on a lot. And then their ex is saying, I know you were on and you didn't answer. To which my question is, why are you jumping on that much? And then we kind of work through that. And I think, Atra, for a lot of parents, it goes back to, well, I want to look collaborative. I need to answer right away. I'm triggered. And I figure if I just look at it, it'll be done and over with, which is why I tell them not to have notifications on. But I think even logging into it feels like a risk, to just how they're feeling and their nerves, as well as, yes, notifying the other person that you're on. But again, it's not a problem if you're going on. I would argue, and I do argue with my, when I'm talking to clients, be measured about how often you're going onto the platform to check on these things.
Yeah, I think it's, at least from what I see, I agree with you. And what I see is going from a place of where I see a client not having any agency in the relationship, right, in the family. And then now they're moving into a place where they do have agency where there's an awareness and it's like, okay, wait, no, I'm done being abused.
Yeah.
Now I've got to go into family court and fight for my kid. That back and forth on OFW, text messages, emails, it can still feel like, oh, I'm still with this person having to defend myself against this person. Right. And to have a mindset of, okay, no, I've separated my body, right? And we are in the middle of a divorce. I am no longer tied to this person. Outside, this person has no power over me. I don't have to respond right away. It's sort of getting that conditioning out. It's the cycle of abuse that so many are used to. It puts them right back into that mind frame and that mindset. So having to sort of understand, okay, wait, no, body, look where I'm at. I'm not even in the same house as this abuser anymore. We don't have to respond right now. It's okay. We can respond in 24 hours.
Yeah. And I think there's no denying that, that there's potential for misuse. There's no denying. Look, we almost always have a number of clients where the abuser has managed to convince the court that, that they need to set something in place so that the protective parent has to answer, has to go on once a day and has to answer within, 7 hours or whatever. Some of the stuff that I see is just ridiculous. That is controlling. So I don't want to invalidate the fact that, yeah, there's misuse and sometimes it's actually condoned and even ordered by the court. 100%, that abuse is allowed to continue. Luckily, those are the exceptions. They are out there, though. For most people, I find that using any of these parenting portals, most of these parenting, I'll talk about that, really do kind of help out. There is a learning curve to almost all of these, really all of these. And I think that OFW is a bit higher, although OFW, I will say, is always working on improving. Talking Parents is another one that I think is used to be like the biggest one in competition with OFW. I don't think it is as much anymore. It has a nicer interface. It's a little bit easier to use. But there's a couple of things about Talking Parents that I just plain don't like. I hope they don't come after me because it is one of the ones I do recommend for people. I want to say that. But what I don't like about it is something that you don't have to do anyway. Talking Parents offers a way to have threads by topic. So a topic might be dentist appointments or soccer team, right? And then what it does is it keeps the entire history of conversation about the soccer team, about dentist appointments throughout the years in one spot. And protective parents tell me all the time that they just love it. That's not my role. My role is basically I'm helping people prepare their cases and their evidence for court, right? We're looking at how to form a strategy. And what I don't like about people who are still in a custody battle with their co-parent is, remember, one of the things I talk about with evidence is you'll look like you're cherry picking unless you include the conversation from start to finish. And in a recent, I think it was in our last episode, I'm beginning to lose track of time, but last week we talked about how with text messages, you have to do that. And sometimes you're texting about other things in between, but that has to be captured or you look like you're editing the thread. And so that's kind of what happens with these talking parent like subject threads, where basically you've got 3 years worth of soccer stuff. And in order for you to talk about, the soccer jersey fight, you also have to include everything from start to finish, from the time the soccer jersey fight started 2 weeks ago, all the way through to now, which might include the fact that somebody, was supposed to bring in Rice Krispie treats and didn't, that somebody, like all of this stuff that waters down the actual thread I need. So when I have clients who are talking parents, all I say is, hey, stick to the messaging, like emailing, so that we can have that nutshell, 3 messages, maybe 5 if you're negotiating something, which is so much more effective as evidence in court, which is what we're focusing on today, right? How to use these things for evidence. And I think that difference, with talking parents is, I would say, while you're in a custody battle, to avoid the threads, even though parents really love that everything's in one place, just focus on a search term and be conscientious about how you're writing. If you really want you wishing all the soccer stuff was in one place, make sure you use the word soccer every time you've got, a subject heading. Make sure that so that when you look up the word soccer, everything's going to come up anyway. And it's like these succinct conversations, right? That's going to make for better evidence that we have found, right? Otherwise, it's the same stuff. Unalterable records, read receipts, court admissible records. They also like to say that their printouts work really well in court. Sometimes they do. Again, it's a little bit easier to use. It's about the same price these days. What they got to first that OFW didn't, is that they actually will allow now, they have been for a little while now, they allow for recorded phone and video calls within this app. Yay. And so they do it whether you are on your desktop doing it or whether you are on your phone doing it. Whereas OFW does not allow for, I think, desktop, right? It's only phone with them, unfortunately. And we're always telling our clients to try to keep it, as much as possible in a stationary place, which phone calls don't allow as much as a desktop video call. But so Talking Parents has that on lock for both. And both OFW and Talking Parents have journals. We haven't really found the best way to use those. We have clients using those in many different ways. They're not overly as conducive to evidence as people want them to be. I will say that. And you can, do document sharing there as well.
Yeah, I think it's good to talk about these 2 main ones right now, and then go into a little bit more with some other ones that people use that aren't as
robust,
that aren't as popular, and so forth. But I think for right now, that's what we want to share with our audience and let them take away just how to use the 2, because the 2 big ones that are almost always recommended, deciding between the difference between the 2 of them.
It is, but I think it's important. I think we would be remiss if we didn't note that an interesting thing that I've been hearing as I've been going to all of the law meetings and conferences, which is to say that AppClose is kind of edging Talking Parents out as I'm listening to these conversations. And I think the thing people love about AppClose is that it is pretty much free. And I got to tell you, I don't enjoy working in AppClose. And I have heard a lot of professionals say the same thing. But A lot of our clients use it anyway because they're using it for the messaging and it's free. And I think part of the problem with AppClose is with any of these things, I want to caution everybody against. Remember how in the last episode, Audra, you and I were talking about get off of texting?
Yes.
The problem with OFW, Talking Parents, AppClose, any of these things is that you can actually end up using it as if you were texting. You can actually have that speedy back and forth. And when you take screenshots, it looks like text messages, which again signals to the court that you are taking that basically you are taking an emotional tone with what you're doing. So no matter what you're using, courts are liking CoParenter. I'm hearing that a lot. I'm reserving judgment on that one. FAYR, FAYR, less and less of my clients are using that one. And then Peaceful CoParenter has sort of sent us a lot of stuff to try to get moving. All of these have advantages, but what it comes down to is note what you're doing within it and how to gather evidence from it.
I would agree. And, I've said it throughout this entire thread, just to really recognize what parts are active when they're working in these spaces of communication, especially one that is so structured. We're now also in the confines of family court, and you're also in the confines now of this application. So show up as much as possible with self-led responses that are not reactive, with clarity, with respect. And really remember that these platforms they're designed, at least their intention is to help, their role is to help with neutralizing the conflict and to provide clarity to the court. So yeah, that's all I got to say for this week's episode.
Yeah. Well, so much more to say on any of these things. Please drop your questions in below, but that's all for this week's episode of Courageous Custody. Before we go, thank you so much for joining us, whether live or on replay. We're so grateful to have helped in any way that we may have. We have some great takeaways for this week. The parenting portals are there. They can help gather evidence. You can help give evidence. Turn off the notifications, right?
Absolutely. Put a pause.
Yes.
Unless it's court order, follow the court order. But if not, put a pause.
Yes.
You do not have to respond to everything right away. So next week, join us at 7 p.m. Eastern. Like or follow or bookmark us so that you don't miss anything. So make sure you get those notifications, because what we're talking about may be something that catches you right when you need it.
And I think I have someone at the door. So leave your comments below. Until next week, stay strong, stay informed, and keep fighting for what matters most. Bye-bye, everyone.